Uh, I'm trying to see here. We're going to start soon. So thank you very much for those ones that are here. I can see Catalina. Yeah, thank you very much. You can hear me. Stephanie, you can hear me. Thank you very much for being there. And I believe there's a little bit of delay, but it will be very interesting. I'll be talking about some common mistakes that engineers they make when we are preparing, or engineers are preparing, the CDR, competency demonstration report. And I've got few surveys. I'm trying a new tool here in Facebook, and there will be some online survey. So yeah, we're probably going to get going. And if others they join, yeah, that's all right. If not, they can always watch in the replay. And if you are on Facebook or Instagram, if you have any questions, any comments, please write down in the comments. I'm monitoring the comments there, and I can certainly answer some comments. Yeah, thanks, Pedro. In Instagram, and I'll be looking probably up and down because the camera down is the Facebook, and then I've got my mobile at the back with Instagram. All right, so mistakes, common mistakes that engineers they make when they are applying or preparing their CDR. And first, yeah, I'll present myself. I'm Gerson Ida. I'm the creator, founder of engineersinaustralia.com. As you know, it's a website that I created to help engineers to validate their engineering qualification here in Australia. Because when I came here 4 years ago, I had a lot of difficulties in recognizing my qualification, and I decided to record some videos and share some content information so engineers, after the qualification recognition, they can have a little bit easier road. So, and these mistakes that I'm going to comment, they're fairly common. A lot of engineers, they are asking me questions, and as you know, I've got my online course, and some of my students, they are facing some of these mistakes, and some of the feedback that I give to them, I've compiled here. So first mistake, who can guess what could be a first mistake? Well, I put down here that the first mistake would be the English test. Some engineers, they wait until they get the minimum English test scores to start preparing their CDR. For example, Engineers Australia requires IELTS minimum of 6 in each band: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Obviously, there is the TOEFL and PTE. They've got their own minimum scores as well. But some engineers, they wait until they get the minimum score to start preparing their CDR. And I classified that as a mistake. It could look logic for us engineers. It could seem to be logic, but in fact, if you are an intermediate English speaker, you're kind of close to the 5, 5.5, even 4.5, you probably could start preparing your CDR. But why? Don't I need to have at least 6 to submit my CDR? Yes, you gotta have 6, minimum 6 in IELTS, for example, to submit your CDR. But preparing your CDR will take some time, and that time that you are preparing your CDR is probably a time that you could also be studying. So you most probably could start preparing your CDR documentation and save yourself a lot of time. So when you finish your CDR documentation, it could coincide with when you get your English test score. So another advantage is that while you're writing your reports, it's also another way of studying and improving your English. You will be doing a lot of research, you'll be looking at technical terms because you have your career episodes in your mind in your own language, and you're probably going to be doing some research about the technical terminology in English, and that's a very good opportunity for you to be studying. So you can, I did the same. I've prepared my CDR as well as when I was preparing myself for the English test. So pretty much when I got my English test, IELTS test, I had already my CDR pretty much finished. So once I got my English certificate, I submitted straight away to Engineers Australia. So another common mistake, it could be not reading the migration skills assessment booklet. So this is another common mistake that can cost you a lot of time. So if you download the booklet, if you Google migration skills assessment booklet, Engineers Australia, you will find that there's a lot of information that many engineers, they ask in Facebook groups, they ask in the Telegram group, in WhatsApp group, and the response is in the booklet. You just need to read it very carefully. If you have questions, you can ask me. I'm more than happy to clarify. Also, obviously, there may be some issues that need a little bit more clarification. The booklet tells you the step-by-step to follow in order for you to validate your engineering qualification. But some people, they have a little bit more better understanding. Other people, they need a little bit of help. Depends on each person. But most the questions can be answered by just reading the Engineering Australia booklet. But if you need more clarification, certainly you can send me your question, and either here in Facebook, Instagram, or you can go to my website, www.engineersinaustralia.com, and there's a section there to talk to us, and you can send me your question there. Another common mistake is documents in English, because there are some documents that you can actually request in English and save yourself some money in translation. For example, if you're asking your company to provide you a reference letter, you can then ask if the company can give you the letter in English. So for example, if you are from, in my case, I'm from Brazil, I got my reference letters in English. So original letters in English, you don't need to translate. So you save yourself each page, you could be saving $20, $30, $40, $50. I don't know how much is that to translate, but if you add up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 documents, you save yourself quite some money. But you've got to be careful with the letter as well, because sometimes you ask the document to the former company if the company can give you a reference letter, and sometimes they're willing and they're keen to provide, but then they give you a letter with just one liner. To whom it may concern, I can state that, let's pick somebody here in the audience, Catalina Peña. She's worked as an engineer here from this period to that period, and that's it. And it does not really address all the information that's needed in the reference letter. So a hint is, what I did, I drafted 2 letters, one letter in Portuguese, which is my mother language, and another letter in English with information that's needed, the name of the company, the period that you worked, your title, the main 5 functions that work in there, and my salary, and some of the changes that I did. And then the company, either my former supervisor or the HR, they signed the letter in English, and then you don't need to translate. Another mistake in translated documents is that some of the translated documents, they don't have the required information about a certified translator. And as you can read in the Engineers Australia booklet, you got to have some information from the translator, and they are registered ID, the name of the translator, the status of the translator, and their contact details of the translator on the English language translation. So it's got to be actually on the document. Another mistake that people, engineers usually they do, it's about the International Engineering Alliance. Some applicants, they don't do their due diligence in checking the relevant accord. They could be the Washington Accord, the Sydney Accord, or Dublin, and they ended up choosing the wrong pathway to validate their engineering qualification. Because you have to pay attention to not just if your country is a signatory of the accord, but you also gotta be careful with if the country is a full signatory of the accord. Cannot be provisional, it's got to be a full signatory status. You've got to make sure that the title of your qualification matches as the same title of the published list of accredited qualifications for the relevant signatory. And also accreditation applies for qualifications completed in or after the year in which the relevant organization gained full signatory status to the accord. Provisional accreditation is not sufficient for assessment under that pathway. So I would like to make a quick, how do I do this? I'd like to make a quick poll. I don't know how I do this. Let's say create a poll. Who's not the one? For those in Instagram, in Facebook, I'm trying to do a poll, and which is a quick survey. I'll see if I can get to it. Yeah, I don't believe I can. Oh, yes, I can. So the first question is, have you started your CDR process? So I believe it's on the screen now. If you have started your competency demonstration report process, obviously there's just two answers, yes or a no. Yes, you got some yeses already. One yes, one no. 50% yes, 50% no. Yeah, I don't know how many people voted, but yeah, we've got some. Yeah, some people voted yes, other people voted no. All right, Pedro in Instagram, he says not yet. Yeah, it's never too late. All right, in Facebook, 67% no and 33% yes. All right, I'll publish these ones because we've got a couple of more surveys that I'm going to do. All right, so I'll publish that result, and then we keep going with the information. Another mistake that people usually they make is about CPD. Do you know what CPD is? Can you put in comments if you know what a CPD is? Comments here. So yeah, we've got 75% no and 25% yes for the started the CPD. So do you guys know what a CPD is? Let's see, where can I go to the comments again? Yes, here. And do you know what a CPD is? All right. Well, CPD is continuing professional development, And one common mistake is that some applicants, they include CPD events that were done prior to graduation. It's important to observe that just CPD events that were done after you have gained your undergraduate qualification will be valid for the purpose of the CPD document. So if you've done some training before the graduation, it doesn't count. You could potentially use that experience as part of your career episode, but using as a CPD, yeah, you cannot use. Another mistake within the CPD, continuing professional development, is that some engineers, they think that just formal courses are valid as CPD events, and forget that non-formal courses like technical visits, private study, services to engineering, workshops are also considered CPD, as long as done after the graduation. Another common mistake, it could be about career episodes. And this is where many engineers make many mistakes. And some of the examples, yeah, you know, there are countless examples, but some of the examples that they tell me, they are that the career episode is not complex enough for the occupational category chosen. For example, if you choose to be assessed as a professional engineer, your career episode, if it's not complex enough, Engineers Australia may actually assess you as a technologist or a technician. So you've got to make sure that your experience is complex enough. There is no engineering problem to be solved. The problems described are lower than the category chosen. Again, Engineers Australia is there to assess your engineering capabilities and your engineering competencies. So you've got to have an engineering problem or an engineering project to be assessed by Engineers Australia. The experiences are too much for the project management aspect, and Engineers Australia is assessing your engineering competencies. So if you are writing too much of project management competencies, Engineers Australia may not approve your CDR, as you may fail to address the engineering competencies. Remember that, for example, professional engineer category, you have to address 16 engineering professional competencies. And there are certain competencies, even though if you have done a lot of project manager job, not always lost, because there are certain competencies that you can use your project management skills and competencies. And another mistake in the career episode is that engineers, they do not follow the career episode format as described in the booklet. The booklet is very prescriptive. You got to have your introduction, your background, your personal engineering activity, and your summary. So this is the format of your career episode. All right, let's see if I can do another quick survey, which is, which experience are you using as a career episode? And the options are academic experience, work experience, both experiences, you're using both academic and work experience, or you don't know yet. Some people, they, especially if they just graduated, they could be using just academic experience. Some people, they have a lot of experience, they could be using work experience. It's very common that engineers, they use both experience. One good example is the, well, in Portuguese they say TCC, Trabalho de Conclusão de Curso, or is the graduation assignment, for example, or even some internship or estágios that they did while they were a student. So very common. Well, some answering here that they're using work experience or both experience, 50% for work experience, 50% for both experiences. Good. Well, people can always vote after the live video as well. And then continuing with the mistake, well, this one, the next one now is a very serious one. And I don't get tired to reinforce about plagiarism. This is a very important point to talk about. Some applicants, they feel tempted to hire companies to write and prepare the CDR on their behalf, especially when those companies, they promise a plagiarism-free report. They say that they give you a certificate that the career episodes or CDR that you're writing, there's no plagiarism. This is very risky, and I certainly don't support these practices. Sorry. And this plagiarism-free report is like you buy like a fake product, and you know that's fake, and the seller gives you a certificate of authenticity. Sorry. So why I don't support this practice? Because it breaches the Engineers Australia Code of Ethics. And if you are caught, your application will certainly not be approved, and the Engineers Australia will ban you for 12 months, as well as your details will be passed to the Home Affairs Department for future investigation. You probably saw my one of my videos and podcasts about a colleague of us that this person got the career episode rejected and was banned for 12 months. And that person has appealed informal revision to Engineers Australia, and Engineers Australia kept the rejection of the application. And the option for this person was to apply for a formal appeal, which can take up to 9 months or 8 months or 9 months. And obviously you've got to pay an extra fee, as well as having to wait for the time, and obviously the stress that you go until the final outcome is done. So I certainly don't support that. People get tempted. You will find a lot of companies that they probably practice that, and it's very, very dangerous. And the other mistake is summary statement, not addressing the competencies with the right content. That's a very important point and a very common mistake. It is understandable that, we are engineers, and our writing skills, at least mine, they're not great, because engineers are good at logic and etc., etc. Some engineers, they have good writing skills, but unfortunately not. If you are like me, it's not great. But I managed to improve my writing skills and understand about competencies after I did a certificate for training and assessment. So then I learned how to address competencies. But you've got to be very careful how you write it to make sure that you address all the competencies. There are 16 competencies. You have a lot of paragraphs in your career episode, and certainly you've got to write very objectively, addressing all the 16 competencies. And I also would like to just, as a good news, I'm also launching this week the validation formula workshop, where I'll be releasing 3 videos, and I'll be doing a live webinar to guide you in how to validate your engineering qualification in Australia. It's going to be a free workshop. In these 3 videos, I'm going to be covering a lot of content that will help you certainly to your journey to validate your qualification in Australia. So if you want to give a step forward and overcome procrastination and start your life transformation, please register to my free workshop. It's free to register. You don't need anything. And this Thursday, I'm planning to send the first video of the workshop. I'm going to put, how do I put this one? I'm going to put the link for the registration in the comments. yeah, I think it went in the comments. So if you want to register, it's fairly easy. You just need to put your name and email and your telephone number, and you'll be registered. I'll be sending you then the details of this workshop. And I think I've got my last survey. My last survey is about the day of this webinar. As I said, I've got 3 videos for this workshop, and our last meeting will be in a live webinar. And I usually do these webinars on Saturday, and usually Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Brisbane time. If you are in Brazil, it will be Friday, probably 9 p.m. But I usually do Saturday morning, 10 a.m. If you have any other preference of time, if you put in the comments, and then yeah, I can see that. So I'll see some people here saying yes, 100% available on Saturday morning. So I believe that the live webinar, I'm planning to do the live webinar on the weekend of the 28th of September, which is not this Saturday, but the Saturday week. So 28th of September, I'm planning to do the live webinar at 10 a.m. and I'll be covering a lot of ground over these 3 videos. I'm going to cover the pathways for the validation. I'm going to be covering the steps for the CDR. I'm going to cover examples, practical examples about the CPD, the continuing professional development. I'm going to giving you some practical examples of the career episodes, how to better choose career episodes that can be complex enough to be worthwhile writing. And I'll be talking about the summary statement, and I'll be talking about certainly the validation formula, which is my online training course that I've done already two groups and just finished the second group now, and I'm getting very good feedback. So if you have any other question, I welcome you to write your question in the comments. I'll endeavor to answer any question that you have. Catalina was asking, can I include my English course as part of your CPD? And certainly you can, Catalina, especially because if you certainly graduated already, and one of the competencies in of the 16 is about trying to improve your communication skills. And studying English obviously can prove that. So you can use in your CPD as well as using to demonstrate one particular competency. And in my course, I go competency by competency. I give very practical examples. But certainly you can use your English study as part of your CPD. Any other questions? Yeah, somebody that couldn't really be here today, that person sent me a question asking about, because this person is recently graduated, less than 6 months ago, and came to Australia. So that person was asking if an application could be made to Engineers Australia and get the validation going. And the answer is yes. If you are recently graduated, you can start your validation process. Certainly you're going to have your English test. Engineers Australia is probably the only assessment entity that does not require work experience. You can develop your 3 career episodes just using your academic experience. Obviously, if you had a very active academic experience, you did internship, you did study groups, you did final assessments, you did some great projects while you were studying, you can certainly use just your academic experience to validate your qualification. All right, well, it went over 30 minutes, and I promised that it was going to be between 15 and 30 minutes. If you have more questions, you can certainly, or if you think about a question after we finish this live session, you can certainly put in the comments. I'll be checking the comments and I'll be replying either in Facebook or Instagram. And don't forget to register to the free workshop, Validation Formula Workshop. And this Thursday, the day after tomorrow, then you will be getting the first video of this workshop. So thank you very much for your attendance and for your participation and your questions. And thank you for answering those surveys. And I'll see you again next Tuesday, probably 7 p.m. If you like this time, because I used to do 7 a.m. in the morning, but if you prefer 7 p.m., put in the comments that 7 p.m. is good, or if you have another suggestion for another day, put that in the comment. My objective here is to reach as many people as I can. So if is there any other date or any other time that's available for you, is better for you, yeah, please put in the comments. Just remember that I work full-time, so either I do very early in the morning or I do in the evening, so it doesn't really clash with my work time. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you around. Bye-bye.